Everybody doing okay? Thank you for coming out tonight. We've got a couple of special guests tonight. We have got my friends Brandon, right? And Benjamin Wapapa. Brandon's in the 3rd grade at Grove. Benjamin is in the 5th grade. Parents are Nicholas and Candace Wapapa. And I know you're going to, I guess, do the invocation for us here in just a minute. So very cool. So I'm going to turn it over to the boys, get out of the way. And we will get, you go first.
I call this meeting to order.
Good job. Let's see, we've got these for you for helping us out tonight. Let's see. There's Ben's. And there's Brandon's. And it's right there with the camera. There we go. Very good. Thank you, Rob. Thank you so much for having you up and getting us. Okay, we will, let's call the roll.
Matthews?
Here.
Ingalls? Here. Flood?
Here.
Bolt?
Here.
Rutherford?
Here.
Seymour?
Here.
Richter?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, ma'am. All righty, we will move on to invocation. And Nicholas Wapapa from the Salitska Indian Baptist Church is going to do that for us tonight. Thank you, sir, so much.
Now stand right here and face you guys, or?
Whatever you want to do.
Okay. Let's all step outside. No, I'm just kidding. Salitska Baptist Church. I was born and raised here in Shawnee, Oklahoma. I was baptized in St. Benedict, so a lifelong resident, and love my town, so I'm honored to be here tonight. And I thank you, Mr. Flood, for asking me to do this. So if you would all pray along with me. Our gracious Heavenly Father, I thank you for today, and I ask that you bless our proceedings tonight here. Bless this wonderful town, Shawnee, and all the residents of this town, Lord. Take care of them. All the people that we love, the people that we care about, Lord. I ask that you watch over these ladies and these gentlemen here who try their best to do very hard work for us, Lord. Thankless jobs sometimes, Lord. I ask that you bless them. Give them courage, give them strength so they can continue all the work that they want to do, the things that they want to see done here in this town, Lord. I ask that you answer those prayers that they say to you every night, Lord. And I ask that you watch over their families, Lord, the families that they leave at home. Take care of them and watch over them and keep them safe. Bless our town, Lord. Bless our people, especially our people who are struggling with homelessness and addiction. And Lord, I ask a special prayer for our tribes here in the Shawnee area. I ask that you let us all work together for the betterment of not only ourselves, but also our children and our grandchildren for generations to come. Amen.
Thank you very much. If you join me with the flag salute. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, item 1 is citizen participation. Like always, 3 minutes limit per person, 12 minutes per topic. Our city attorney will keep time for us. If you stick around to the end, you may hear some comments out of us, but it won't be a back and forth thing here. So first up tonight, we have Carol Curry, it looks like. So you are up. Microphone is all yours. Come right up here. Here we go. Right there. That one's yours, and bend it down where you need it to be. You can bend that down where it'd be closer
Is it
for
on?
you. Yes, ma'am.
Is it on?
There you go. We hear you just fine.
You ready?
Yes, ma'am.
On June the 16th, 2021, work was begun on my property at 616 West Burns to repair damage caused by the placement of a fire hydrant by the city of Shawnee directly on top of our sewer line and a city gas line. The fire hydrant was installed in 2013 while we were out of town, and the resulting settling and damage at installation cost $7,000, damage to the sewer line on our property. The City of Shawnee denied our application for expenses incurred. They did not offer any turf or money for repair of landscaping. Both Seth Barkheimer and Jerry Mankin, qualified men in this field, agreed that it is not standard procedure to install a hydrant on top of a service line, much less on top of two service lines. Even though two city engineers, Seth Barkheimer and Brad Schmidt, came by and gave approval to the repairs at the finish of the job on June 24, 2021, the hydrant still sits exactly where it was located on our sewer line and gas line. Therefore, with the high risk of further damage, I am requesting that the City of Shawnee relocate the hydrant properly in another location off my property. All of this was in progress during the time my husband suffered a stroke and was in the hospital. It was not a good time. And I think you might be disappointed if you felt like the City of Shawnee would not do the right thing and take care of this, because it's an ongoing issue, because it's been a problem before. Mr. Mankin says it's very likely it could be a problem again, and I can't pay for it again.
All righty.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is Rob Morris. Microphone is yours, Rob.
Good evening. Just a couple of small things tonight. One, if we could elaborate a little bit more on the contract review committee meeting every year. The public's not allowed to talk at that meeting, so how are we supposed to get our thoughts across if we have a problem with any contract? Next, there's the showers at the resource center are still being used now. That was a 3-month thing. After the first of this month, it was supposed to be gone, and I've seen them twice in use with people in them. And then they had the refuse truck to pull up and pump the refuse water out. So who's paying for that now? Last thing, actually, I say the last thing. The dates on the burned building, the people on 524 West Main, which is the building by the depot, they pulled demolition permits in January after that building burned. Same time that we tried to get people to clean it up in town, that were going to come clean it up, and got shut down by the city. Now we're putting a lien on those people's property for what we're cleaning up now, and it's not their fault. I asked if there was a letter that said that they could evict the vagrants in that building. I asked the city for that letter. There was no permission given by those property owners. Kind of seems like that's on the city now for kicking them out when they threatened to burn the building down and did. And the last thing, can we do the pledge right? I'd really appreciate that. Thank you.
All righty. Next up is Edwina Butler-Wolf.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mayor. I have a couple of things that I want to say about in my area where I live at, in the Golden Acres Edition, is that I'm seeing more of homeless people in that area. I don't know if it's due to the fact of the park being down there, but I've noticed in the past 3 weekends on Sundays that, especially yesterday, was a couple of homeless people that was just walking up and down the street, and the park was full of people taking their children down there, and there is a church next to me, so I'm not sure if they were there sitting at the church or whatever. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention about, I don't know if the homelessness is coming out to the parks, or is it coming out as outside of town. But this is the first time that I've seen it. But there is a airport track there, and some of the neighbors had mentioned to me that while they were walking, that some homeless people that's pitching tents up there in the bushes, and they would come out as they were walking in the early morning. So this is a concern of mine about homeless people, and of course downtown it's not an ending story. You know, it's sad that we have to see these homeless people. And I know they're unfortunate people and they're going through some rough times, but it's time that you as commissioners and the mayor take charge on this big issue and stop just using your titles and keeping your titles in your pockets. So it's time to get something done. I know recently that you did a MOU with a group of, or an organization to help with this, but it seems like I had heard Rob last meeting that, you know, homeless people are coming to Shawnee area because we've got the resources to take care of them. And it's sad that you are not taking care of this situation, and it needs to be taken care of. Especially now that I feel like that they are coming, and they're coming in areas that they normally don't come in. They're coming on the outskirts of town, and I don't like that. And I don't, you know, we can't even leave our garage doors open. You know, Sunday afternoons we like to do our lawn and leave our garage doors open. But now, you know, you see individuals up and down your streets that you don't know what's going through their mind, and I don't get to open up my shades because we go to work. My husband and I go to work, and there's no one there at the house. And I do have cameras in the front yard, but not in that back there on my patio. So, but that will change here in a few months that I will get them. But it's a concerning issue. It's time again that you do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up, looks like Vicky. Is it? And I can't read. Vicky, there you go. Vicky Wilson. I'm sorry, Vicky. Come on up. Yeah, how are you doing?
My first time here,
That's
but I
okay.
have called before regarding the areas of south side, mostly from Harrison, probably on back south, where the grass is not being cut. We got Johnson grass growing down there by Millstead Park. Kids play in there. I see parents bringing lawnmowers, cutting their own grass there. And I've called the city parks where I'm supposed to call. And I've talked to, left a message on a Cody's phone, never returns my call. So I think, they're going to get to it. You know, if someone's complaining about grass being tall. But as of today, or this morning when I left out of Shawnee, the grass was still not cut. There has been stuff that's been dumped. People don't want to pick them up. I don't know whose responsibility to pick up trash. There's a mattress down there. There's trees that has fallen in that little area down by Millstead Park. It's been there for almost all summer long. The city workers are not doing the job. Supervisors need to help their workers. Cody had called me one time and told me that they were shorthanded because they cut employees. Well, to me, if you're going to cut employees, then we'll contract that out. Our city looks awful. You go off of 177 to Farrell, get off of Farrell to 177, that grass is tall. Getting off on Kickapoo there, that grass is tall. It makes us look bad. I had people come out of town this summer because they were playing down at Fire Lake, and they said, what happened to the city of Shawnee? They used to have their grass cut. It used to look pretty like 3-4 years back, and now look at it. Y'all are bushy down here. I said, I've tried calling. I tried calling the city managers, but they directed me to the city parks. No one will turn my call. And like I said, supervisors probably need to go and help their staff. If you're shorthanded, get some help. Contract it out. There's people out there that probably would help get it cut. It looks awful. I've never seen it look that bad. And plus, I want to know, I come home from work around 4, I leave, and I come down by Semino. I see one of your city workers driving towards Semino. Are they allowed to drive their company pickups home? If so, then God dang, who's paying for that gas? Taxpayer or what? I mean, to me, that's not right. You get a job, you got a responsibility, you got your vehicle. No one offers me a vehicle to drive from my work. I work. So I'm thinking, why are you allowing people to take their the company trucks home? Is he important, that important? I don't know who it is. It's a city park, because I seen that park, because I meet it. And I met it at it when I was stopped before I got on Highway 3, and it turned, and I seen that city park on the bottom of it. So I know it's somebody in city park. And I don't understand why you're letting someone drive a Shawnee vehicle all the way down to Semino area. If that's where he lives, I don't know. But, my concern is the grass needs to be cut on the south side. And I seen at the airport this morning where I was going to go walk. When I was going, 3 minutes, well, when I was going to walk, that grass is tall too, so no one's been cutting it over there. So,
Thank you
but that's
very
my
much.
concerns and my
Great.
complaints.
Very
Those
good.
two.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Hope we get some results.
Next up is Rick Young. How are you, sir?
Peace and smiles. First off, I want to congratulate our new commissioner. Welcome to the circle. I affectionately call it the 7-0 Club, but welcome.
Thank you.
I want to quote a colleague of mine. I've done it before. His comment was this, and I'll sit here and listen to some of the people, and we don't have a whole lot of positivity because some of the things that are going on, but we do have a lot of positivity. There's a lot of good things going on in Shawnee, and then we are still part of the tectonic paradigm shift for the better, for the good of the whole. And I want to make sure each time I come before you that I say that and bring that first off of anything else. And just for the privilege and honor to stand before council in public and share free speech without being cut off, shut down, or, canceled. This is from Billy. This applies in a lot of parts of life. No matter how bad the calls are, don't throw nothing on the court. If we have an official sitting over there, he totally understands what I'm talking about. And sometimes it gets that way in politics, and it gets that way even at municipalities. It gets pretty bad, but no matter how bad it gets, do not throw anything on the court. Somebody might get hurt. The other thing is just to keep this before the council. Charter change 2022 for true representative government. Wards, ward voting. To have true representative government. If you represent Ward 6, you need to represent Ward 6 and find out what the situation, challenges, and problems in that area. If it's Ward 1, same thing. And then collectively, you can find out what's going on in the city. We don't have a lot of people coming up here whining and crying and being about things that's not getting done, and I truly agree with what she's saying. But we're getting there. I also want to bring it for the fact that we have a lot of disenfranchised people, or at least they feel that way. They've been encouraged enough to just think they're going to do what they want to do anyway. The aristocratic oligarchy, they're going to do what they want to do. I don't have a voice, I don't have a vote. We need to change that. We're going into this is the 21st century. And so as much as I can, I want to be a voice for those. Here's a new term. We have to be pretty creative people in Shawnee. This is for the volunteer, unselected stakeholders, AKA citizens. The other thing here, we have a lot of people talking about the unhoused. They're not homeless. We have some homeless people. It's a very slither of homeless people. But the majority of those people, they have all kinds of different challenges and problems, and we need to marry those people up with people that can help them. Because I understand they all need Jesus, but the knob is on the inside. There are some things that we can do to rectify it and to vet these people. So Shawnee's not the only one facing this problem. But at the same time, as we turn our face to it and we don't pay attention to it, we get more of it. First off, we have to get to the place where we stop denying that we have the problem. I think that's one of the major things that we have here. We don't have a problem. I said it on a meeting a few years ago, and one of my representatives from the state level told us we had 30 unhoused people. I'm like, man, I can go get you 30 unhoused people in one area right now. Well, about a couple of months ago, I found out, thank you, we have 860 unhoused people, and at the same time, you marry up unhoused people with grants and monies that are being brought into the community. We might not be trying to solve it as fast as we want to solve it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All righty, item 2 is consider approval of consent agenda. Is there anything anyone wants to pull off the consent agenda? If not, do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second for approval of item 2. We'll call the question. Motion passes 6 in favor and 1 abstention. Item 3 is consideration and adoption of the memorandum of understanding between Citizen Potawatomi Nation and the City of Shawnee for the transfer of wastewater infrastructure in the de-annexed area, and I believe Andrea is up. How are you this
Good
evening?
evening, Mayor and Commissioners. 1 year ago, almost exactly to the day, the City of Shawnee and the Citizen Potawatomi Nation signed a continued cooperation agreement. Since then, intergovernmental discussions have been ongoing, which have already benefited incident response planning, coordination of maintenance responsibilities, and timely information on capital improvement projects that may affect either jurisdiction. This evening's item is focused on the transfer of infrastructure in the de-annexed area. Several in-depth discussions with the subject matter experts have been held throughout this past year to discuss the orderly transfer of both the water and wastewater utility lines. The CPN and the city have mutually determined that the transfer of those utilities should occur in phases. Therefore, sewer and water infrastructure will be turned over at different times, and the sewer infrastructure, our wastewater infrastructure, being the first. As this is a gravity-fed collection system, the flow in portions of the wastewater collection system will have to be redirected. For that very purpose, the CPN is proposing to build a lift station. The MOU that was brought before you details both roles and responsibilities as to the turnover of the sewer infrastructure and the desire for the city to turn those over and for the CPN to build the necessary lift station. And I'd be happy to answer any question you have.
Any questions? I guess not. Must have explained it well. Do we have a motion?
I actually have a question.
There
I
you
just
go.
want to better understand
okay.
what a
Nope.
memorandum of understanding is itself, like the item itself.
This is a simple agreement that both parties agree to work together as laid out in this memorandum of understanding. So both parties understand that their roles and responsibilities.
Okay. Like legally binding, or is it just like a paper handshake, if you will? That's kind of, sorry, that's kind of,
It's binding within the limited term set forth.
okay.
There, as explained, there are additional fine tuning and details that will need to be addressed, but it is binding as to those conditions set forth.
Okay.
Did you get it? Any other questions? Could maybe, just for people's benefit, explain the difference between an MOU and a contract. I know an MOU is probably a form of contract, but
Yeah, you're spot on there, Mayor. It is a contract, setting forth a general understanding, most often, I'm speaking in generalities, most often to be more formally laid out in a more detailed contract. But they take on many different forms. But that would certainly be the intention here, is to get a treetop level understanding of the parties' rights and responsibilities, duties, and then as it progresses forward and more details become available, those would be fleshed out into a more formal arrangement.
okay, very good. Thank you for that. Any other questions? If not, we'd entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept item number 3.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
All righty. We have motion and a second for approval of item 3. We will call the question. And it passes 7-0. Item 4 is consideration of the purchase of 5 traffic signal control cabinets, estimated total of $95,000 from Signal Tech. And I think Brad is up. How are you, sir?
Good, how are you?
Doing well.
So this purchase would allow us to replace 5 of our controller cabinets at our signals throughout the city. The ones that they will replace are outdated and obsolete.
Okay. I think I saw this was like the first step in probably a number
Yes.
of them. going forward?
Originally, I think it was a 5 or 6 year plan, but with the price increases, we've extended that. But
Yeah,
when complete, all of our cabinets will be standardized to one brand that is
Okay.
compatible with all of our system.
okay, very good. Any other questions or discussion?
Will these have like time sensitivity?
Yes.
Okay. And then still what we're planning with the expansion on 45th, they'll be compatible with that?
Yes.
Anyone else got questions? If not, anyone have a motion?
Move to approve item 4.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Daniel. All righty, we have motion and a second to approve item 4. We will call the question. Motion passes 7-0. Item 5 is a public hearing and consideration of an ordinance to rezone property located at 1910 West Benedict Street from A1 Rural Agricultural District to R1 Single Family Residential District. Case number RZ 11-22. Applicant is Chris Gober, and Mr. Harkins is up. How are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you, Mayor, Commission members. Ryan Harkins, Community Development Director. This is a rezoning request to go from the A1 Agricultural District to R1 Single Family Residential. The applicant at this time has requested, and staff concurs with the request, to defer the item to the October 17th Shawnee City Commission meeting. The applicant is looking at some additional discussion items and questions and trying to ferret through their development concept with staff. So they're essentially trying to make sure they cross their i's and dot their t's, and would like some time for that.
So what you need is a motion to defer then?
We need a motion to defer
To the
to the
17th.
October 17th, 2022 commission meeting.
All righty.
I'll make a motion to defer item 5 to October 17th meeting.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have a motion to defer item 5 to October 17th meeting. We have a motion and a second, so we'll call that question. And motion to defer passes 7-0. Item 6, a public hearing consideration of an ordinance to rezone property located at 4029 and 4031 North Union Avenue from R1 Single Family Residential District to C3 Highway Commercial District. Case number RZ 12-22. Applicant David and Amy McDaniel. And Ms. Harkins up again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As noted, this is a request to rezone to the C3 Highway Commercial District from R1. It involves 2 properties. The applicant has requested a deferment to the October 17th, 2022 City Commission meeting, essentially to re-advertise in order to provide proper and legal notice. The applicant inadvertently submitted only part of the legal description that was necessary. So to make this a proper public hearing process, they've agreed to, and staff has concurred with the request to defer this item at this time. We will re-advertise with the full and complete legal description so that it is a proper public hearing process.
Okay, very good. Any questions, or anyone have a motion?
I'll make a motion to defer, sir, to the October 17th meeting.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we have a motion and a second to defer item 6 to the October 17 meeting. We'll call the question. And motion to defer passes 7-0. Item 7 is consideration or rehabilitation of high hazard potential dams grant agreement between the City of Shawnee and Oklahoma Water Resources Board. To Mr. Barkheimer, how are you, sir?
Yes, sir, pretty good. So this is going to be pretty familiar to you. We discussed this grant opportunity at the last commission meeting. The grant, as you said, is the HHPD grant. It's a 65-35 split with OWRB up to $100,000. So their portion would be up to $65,000. Our portion would be up to $35,000 for a $100,000 contract. It's to be used for field investigation and design of the lake dam number 1 mitigation. And staff does recommend approval, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys have.
Any questions?
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah. How about a motion?
Move to
Motion
approve. Well,
Okay, I think Mark got
you can
that.
second.
So, did you second that?
I'll second.
Okay, so Cammy and Mark then. All righty, we have a motion and a second for approval of item 7. We'll call that question. And that passes 7-0. Item 8 is consideration of the following budget amendments for fiscal year 2022 to 2023. It looks like we have, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of them. So Ms. McNabb Fox is up. How are you, ma'am?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing great.
Great. Well, good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Tonight I am presenting a budget amendment for your consideration for a total of $1,028,825 across several funds, and I'll go over each reason for those amendments. The first amendment is to the Capital Improvement Fund for $159,178. Previously, the board approved to purchase and equip 2 police vehicles. Since the approval of the budget in FY23, the cost of the vehicles has increased by $6,000 each. Also, the police department is requesting to purchase 3 additional vehicles due to the availability of the vehicles. That is a separate item right after this item. This additional funding needed will be funded by sales tax collections that are projected to exceed budget estimates. The second amendment is for position adjustments. It was recently discovered that 4.5 positions that were funded in the prior year were inadvertently excluded from the current year's budget due to those positions being vacant at the time that staff was formulating the budget. The positions include 1 FTE in the Aquatic Centers Fund, a half position in the General Fund, and 3 positions in the Shawnee Municipal Authority Fund. This increase in the budget will be funded by revenues projecting to exceed budget estimates in both the General Fund and the SMA. The third amendment is to fund projects that were approved in the prior fiscal year but not yet completed. These projects include $20,000 in the General Fund for the Love Your Block grant, $63,000, $813 for a patch truck in the Streets Department, and $7,650 in the Street Improvement Fund for a lighted street stop sign on Highland Street. And this additional appropriation will be funded by fund balance from prior year. The fourth amendment is for 2 grants. The first is the new Community Development Block Grant. The total for that is $361,874. It'll be primarily used for the mortgage rental assistant and utility assistant programs for that grant. The second is a grant from the Department of Housing and Urban Development Emergency Solutions Grant. This was a project that began in last fiscal year, and it is to support homelessness prevention, emergency shelter, and related services. To complete this project, an additional $50,000 is needed in appropriation. The final budget amendment is for the payment of retiree health insurance that was excluded from the budget in the current year. This was part of a project that was approved in 2018 for a retirement incentive program. The general fund will need $134,500 in appropriation, and the SMA will need $16,500. And that is all. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to answer those.
Anybody got questions?
I do. I'm looking for them.
Oh,
I wrote them down.
Fine, take your time.
Because that one, you answered some of them as you were going, so that's why I'm kind of scrolling through them. Let me see which one it was.
It can be a little confusing when we hear fund, grant, and how that all works. Could you kind of explain why we'd be looking at items that would say fund, but there's a grant involved, which would be free money we'd be receiving, if that makes sense?
Sure. The grant funds are all on a reimbursement basis. So the $50,000 is just, we just need additional budget authority for that. We already have the funding for that. So we just need the appropriate, or the budget authority in the current year. We received it in the prior year. And the $361,000 is on a reimbursement basis. So we just need the budget authority to spend, and then we will get reimbursed from that grant. When I talk about fund balance, that is prior year money that's left over from, say we budgeted $1 million and we only spent $900,000, then you have $100,000 remaining in fund balance. And so anytime that we have excess revenues over what we actually spend, then you have fund balance. And so anytime you have a project from the year before that doesn't quite get completed, we can use that funding to fund our current year's budget because that was a prior year project.
Thank you. I know it can be confusing to people. They think, oh, I think we got a grant for this, but now why are we? You explained it perfectly. Thank you.
Okay, great.
And that was one of my questions, so that worked out. Just kind of thinking the worst, I guess, in 1 second. You said that one or more of them were funded by sales tax collections projecting to exceed budget estimates. What happens if we come up short anytime, like on those estimates?
Well, when the staff formulated the budget and was presented to the commission at that time, we did budget a contingency. And so if that were to, and we watch it very closely every month, and I'll be presenting a sales tax report later this evening. But we will be watching that very closely and make management decisions based on current revenue collection. So right now, the way it was budgeted was very conservatively, which is a good thing. That's the way that's looking right now. But of course, we will be continually monitoring it.
Okay.
Any other questions? No? Okay, let's see, I think we need a motion here.
Move to approve item 8.
I'm sorry?
Move to approve item 8.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Darren. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve item 8. We'll call the question. Motion passes 7-0. Item 9, consideration and purchase of 5 Dodge Charger police vehicles at the state bid price of $36,198 each for a total of $180,990 from Bob Howard Jeep Chrysler Dodge. And I think Chief Wilson's up. Man, you got up there fast. You're sneaky.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. We are seeking your approval tonight to purchase 5 new Dodge Chargers. They will come from Bob Howard, as you said. The individual price is $36,198, and the total price for all 5 would be $180,990. They did go up, as was spoken in the earlier budget amendment. When we first budgeted, they went up another $6,000. We have a short timeline. That's why we asked for the additional vehicles. They're also going to stop production of the gas model and go, as of, I believe, December, they're going to go to the electric platform. So we're also still looking at, even if we do put in the order for these right now, we're looking at a 10-month to 12-month turnaround still before we will actually receive them.
So
Yeah.
that's why we went ahead and asked for the additional 3 so we can kind of stay with the game right now. So
Mhm.
if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Anybody got questions? It's definitely hard to get cars now.
It is.
If you can get them, you better get them. Any questions for the chief? How about a motion?
Thank you.
I'll
Thank you,
move to
Chief.
approve.
Thank you,
Item
sir.
9.
I'll second.
Mark and Travis. All righty, we have a motion and a second to approve item 9. Let's call the question. Motion passes 7-0. Item 10, consider bids. We've got Shawnee Lake Dam improvements. I think Seth is back up.
Yes, sir. So last meeting, we had a bid opening for the Lake Dam Improvement Project. At that bid opening, we received 2 bids, the low bid being $2,431,296, and the high bid being $4,294,494.87. So city staff and the design consultant have reviewed the bid proposals, and with the bid exceeding the city's budgeted amount and the engineer's estimate, staff recommends the rejection of all bids at this time. We're going to work to achieve the project goals in conjunction with other ongoing projects and by alternative methods. So it doesn't necessarily kill the goal, just maybe moves it down the road a little bit. So, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys have over specific elements.
Any questions?
Did you guys learn why the amounts were so different
Right.
from
I
each
think
other?
there's
Definitely
two
different.
elements. The riprap placement was more complicated than we had originally thought. Probably there was concern with how they would place the riprap on the steep bank with conventional methods. What I mean by that is with track hoe. So I think there's a fluctuation in price because one of them priced it with a track hoe and one of them priced it with a barge. And that by far is the controlling unit price in the project. So if you look at it, the low bid of their 2.4 million, 1.8 million of it comes from the riprap placement. So that single unit price, in the engineer's estimate being $50 and then the low bid being $100, that single unit price item is really what changed it. But also, generally speaking, it's not an overly competitive bid packet because the other elements that are pretty minor, like ag base and asphalt, are not elements that are hard to get right now, are not elements that are uncommon. They're easy to compare, and they're 2 and 3 times what's normal on their pricing. So it's just not competitive. Yeah.
Will we be able to wrap some of this outlook into the grant process? Not pricing, but just kind of as we review the whole deal.
Yeah, so that's kind of our plan that we've already talked about is the HHPD grant that we got that we talked about tonight is trying to package some of this together and then also just to reevaluate what we're doing. Do we really need to place riprap for the entire length of the dam or do we want to address just our problem areas? Maybe we can address some of the pricing by clarifying how we're expecting them to place it. So I think there's some things that we can do to try to help our unit price and get this more cost effective.
I know that we don't want to delay the project too long based on
Right.
the severity of what could happen.
Right.
And we never want to get behind the, behind the 8 ball on that one. We've been there too many times. So I'm thankful for your very intentional rejection of these, and hopefully very soon with putting the right minds together, you can build something that will not only do its job but do its job and be a more affordable option. So thank you for your diligence in this.
Any other questions?
So what happens, like, when you guys if we were to reject it, then, like, what's the next step? Did I miss that? Because there's 3 other companies on here that have submitted something before, right? I'm looking at the plan holders list. There's 3 other companies.
Right, they were
on here.
plan holders, but they didn't submit a bid.
They didn't submit.
So they were initially interested, but for whatever reason, they didn't submit a bid. So we just had 2 bidders. So with the rejection, the project effectively ends right now. We're not going to move forward, and then we're gonna use what we've learned in some of the design elements to incorporate it into a future bid process.
Okay.
So what we need now is a motion to reject the bid.
I'll make a motion to reject
Thank you,
all
ma'am.
bids.
I'll second.
Travis, okay, we have a motion and a second to reject the bids there on item 10, so we will call the question. Motion passes 7-0. Item 11 is acknowledged monthly sales tax reports. Ms. McNabb Fox will bring us good news.
Well, I think it is good news. So good evening again. I'm presenting the September sales and use tax report. For the month of September, we collected $2,146,092, which is 10% over our projections for that month. And year to date, we are $828,559,000 over projections. And that's across 7 different funds, with the majority of that being in the general fund. Use tax collections is up 59,000 or 7% above projected for the year to date. So, very good news.
That's good news. That's how we were able to pay for some of that stuff too.
Yes, sir.
That's always a good thing. All righty, thank you so much. All right, number 12 is administrative reports. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, it looks like. I think Jacob's up first. How are you, sir?
Good, and you, sir?
Doing great.
Good. The presentation is designed to provide a review of how an additional sales tax would support the city's capital improvement needs. The catalyst for this discussion was the wastewater treatment plant project. As we all know, the bids for that project came in significantly higher than the original level of financing. In order to fund the project, the city secured an additional $65+ million from the Oklahoma Water Resources Board. To qualify for those additional funds, the city had to demonstrate to OWRB that there would be sufficient revenue each year to satisfy the loan payments. In order to meet that requirement, a utility improvement fee was adopted by the Commission on August 15, 2022. The utility improvement fee has a start date of March 1, 2023, and provides a 5-year rate adjustment plan, with the fee reaching $24 per month for each customer in 2027. Due to the magnitude of the utility improvement fee, the City Commission requested information on how an additional sales tax, specifically a half-cent sales tax, could be implemented in lieu of the monthly fee. With that, the proposed plan is to ask the voters for an additional 0.5% sales tax. The general purpose of the tax would be to fund infrastructure capital improvements, which would include debt service loan payments, and the terms of the sales tax would be undefined. The proposed 0.5% sales tax would bring with it several benefits. By satisfying the debt service requirements, the 0.5% sales tax would enable the City Commission to eliminate the utility improvement fee before its implementation date of March 1st, 2023. The most important component of a sales tax election is that the voters will be empowered to make the decision. Voters can decide to reject the sales tax and keep the utility improvement fee, or they can decide to adopt the sales tax so that the utility improvement fee can be eliminated. With the choice of the voters, an additional 0.5% sales tax in lieu of the utility improvement fee would reduce the financial impact on our residents. With the utility charge, Shawnee residents pay 100% of the cost, whereas with the sales tax, the cost is shared with those who visit our community. As a basic comparison, the utility improvement fee will eventually have a monthly rate of $24 for all customers. If the half-cent sales tax option is implemented, a person would have to spend $4,800 per month in taxable purchases in order to pay the equivalent $24 utility improvement fee. Most households will spend significantly less than that each month in taxable purchases. Even at $2,000 in taxable purchases, the effect of a half-cent sales tax is only $10 compared to the utility improvement fee of $24. Simply put, a 0.5% sales tax captures funding from visitors to our community, and it reduces the financial impact to our residents. Now let's look at the funding that an additional sales tax would provide. A half-cent sales tax is estimated to generate over $3.56 million per year. It is important to note that although the annual collections from the half-cent sales tax will likely increase over time, OWRB will only consider historical collection data and will not factor in future growth. The maximum annual debt service for the 2022 CWSRF loan is approximately $3.26 million per year. This will provide a minimum remaining balance of approximately $300,000 per year. The remaining funds could be used for infrastructure capital improvements and debt service, including the other two loans associated with the wastewater treatment plant project. On the next slide, we will see a better analysis of the potential surplus created by the half-cent sales tax. So there are, of course, some complexities of implementing the sales tax, and as such, there are a few points that we want to bring to everyone's attention. First, due to the way that the sales tax must be structured and implemented to satisfy OWRB requirements, the first 5 years of the sales tax will create a surplus of over $10.5 million. This is caused because the sales tax would begin to be collected on April 1st of 2023. However, the annual debt service payment on the 2022 CWSRF loan is not estimated to reach the maximum level of approximately $3.26 million until 2028. If we look at the life of the loan, which is estimated at 33 years based on the amortization schedule, the 0.5% sales tax would generate approximately $39.5 million more than is needed for the 2022 CWSRF loan. Again, the remaining funds could be used for infrastructure capital improvements and debt service, including the other two loans associated with the wastewater treatment plant project. The next item to cover is the automatic creation of a use tax. As noted, state law requires that an increase in sales tax be approved by a vote of the people. Any sales tax rate approved by the voters provides for an automatic update to the use tax so that they are both at the same rate. The adoption of a 0.5% sales tax provides a corresponding implementation of a 0.5% use tax. It is important to note that the use tax does not carry with it the obligations or restrictions that are imposed on a sales tax through the ballot language. Use tax collections are deposited into the city's general fund and can be used for any legal purpose. A 0.5% use tax is estimated to generate approximately $417,000 the first year. Here we see the tentative timeline, with the first step being for the City Commission to call the election. That would take place at the City Commission meeting on October 3rd. Next, the election would be held on January 10th, 2023. Then, if the sales tax is approved, the Commission would eliminate the utility improvement fee at the City Commission meeting on February 6, 2023, before any customers are billed for that fee. Finally, on April 1st, 2023, the collection would begin for the sales tax. Excuse me. The question will come up on how Shawnee's sales tax rate will compare to other cities if the 0.5% sales tax is approved by the voters. To answer that question, I will start with a quick reminder from the sales tax presentation at the last meeting. Our community sales tax rate is 9.495%. The rate is a combination of sales taxes implemented by 3 entities, with 4.5% for the state of Oklahoma, 1.495% for the county, and 3.5% for the city. You may recall this slide as well from the last meeting. The chart shows the top 15 cities in Oklahoma by population, with Oklahoma City on the left and Bixby finishing on the right. The state's 4.5% is applied statewide, which can be seen here as the bottom section of the bars in blue. The next section is the applicable county sales tax, which is indicated in orange. Please remember that Pottawatomie County has a 0.495% tax, which will end in June of 2026. Finally, the city of Shawnee, the city's sales tax rate is shown in green, The one update in this slide is the addition of a half cent to Shawnee's rate as indicated in yellow. In reviewing the combined rates, Shawnee would continue to be on the top end at 9.995%, followed by Stillwater at 9.313%. Then my favorite slide, we pull out the state and county taxes and compare only the sales tax rate applied by the municipality. Shawnee currently has the second lowest municipal sales tax rate at 3.5%, just above Bartlesville at 3.4%. Shown in yellow is the additional 0.5% that could be considered for our community. With the additional half-cent tax, Shawnee would join 10 of the top 15 most populated cities in the state of Oklahoma, which have a rate of 4% or higher. Shawnee's rate of 4% would tie with Edmond, Stillwater, and Muskogee, and it would remain below the sales tax rate of Midwest City, Enid, Oklahoma City, Norman, Lawton, Owasso, and Bixby. Midwest City would continue to lead at 4.6%. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Got questions? Nobody? Great presentation.
Great.
It was very informative. Still see people scrolling through it, so I'm going to let them see if they have any questions come up.
A lot of information.
It is a lot of information. Everybody good?
I think so.
Everybody good down here? Good job. Thank you, sir. I think you're up for the next one, aren't you?
Yes, sir.
All righty.
All right. This presentation is designed to provide a brief overview of utility rates and fees charged by the Shawnee Municipal Authority. Specifically, we will look at residential rates for customers inside city limits relating to water and wastewater. In 2008, the City of Shawnee hired Municipal Finance Services to conduct a study on the water and sewer rates. The focus of that study was to ensure that the utility revenues were sufficient to cover annual costs, including operations and maintenance, interdepartmental and fund transfers, debt service obligations, and capital needs. The result of the study included a proposal for an aggressive 10-year rate adjustment plan. The proposed plan recommended that by 2018, the minimum monthly rate for residential customers inside city limits be $29.75 for water service and $21.40 for sewer service. Those rates are substantially higher than what was actually implemented and substantially higher than what today's rates are. To signify the difference, if we had in place today the rates that were proposed to be in effect by 2018, the city would have an additional $3.6 million every year in the annual budget. However, a modified plan was adopted on September 8, 2009, with lower overall increases over a 5-year period. The minutes from that City Commission meeting specifically note that the modified plan, referred to as Plan B, delayed the implementation of the Atoka Waterline tie-in project until at least 2014. It was noted that with the ability to treat water from the West Watkins Reservoir, the tie-in was less important. The Atoka Waterline project discussed in 2009 was to bring the Atoka line directly to the water treatment plant. To date, that project has not been implemented, but it will continue to be evaluated by staff as part of the planning for water system improvements. To be clear, though, the City of Shawnee does have access to water from Lake Atoka. Currently, water from Atoka can be fed into Shawnee Twin Lakes. The first project funded from the 2009 plan was the replacement of one of 2 raw water treatment lines from Shawnee Twin Lakes to the water treatment plant, ensuring redundancy in the water supply system. That project was completed in 2011. Additionally, the current construction of a new water treatment plant for over $14.5 million will greatly enhance the city's ability to treat water from West Watkins Reservoir. Next, let's look at the historical utility rates. Again, for simplicity, on the water and sewer rates, we'll look just at residential customers that are inside city limits. This encompasses the majority of customers. Here we see the actual water service rate adjustments implemented from November 2009 through March 2022. I want to call out the 2 highlighted columns, which signify where the rates went unchanged for 5 years. During that 5-year period, costs continue to increase while the funding to provide core services remained the same. In 2018, the rates were evaluated and increased by 7.5%. To help ensure that rates were evaluated on a more frequent basis, the City Commission incorporated an annual review which provides for rate adjustments based on increases in the Consumer Price Index. That practice was implemented in 2020 and again in 2022. The rate adjustment in 2022 was for 3%. On this slide, we see the same story as expressed in the rates for sewer service. The one difference is that there was a 6-year gap between rate adjustments as seen in the 2 highlighted columns. Again, the rate adjustments in 2022 was 3% based on the Consumer Price Index. Separate from regular service rates, there are, of course, a number of fees that are tied to specific actions or requests of customers. These fees help to account for costs that are incurred by those individual customer actions. The fees generally cover the costs associated with overtime and additional administrative staff time and the cost of mailing notices. Without the fees, the costs would need to be distributed across all utility customers. The transfer service fee of $25 occurs when a customer transfers water service from one address to another within city limits. The processing fee of $25 is assessed to each new residential water service account at the time the account is established. The rescheduling fee of $25 is assessed when an adult is not present at the service address for the scheduled time for the water service to be turned on, and a time must be rescheduled. And the cutoff notice fee of $5 is assessed to a customer's account when the account is not paid in full and a cutoff notice is sent to the account holder. The after-hours connection service fee of $50 is assessed when a customer requests to have water services turned on after the normal business hours of the customer service office. The right-hand column of the slide shows the approximate amount of money received in fiscal year 22 by each fee. The total for these fees, approximately $147,000, represents just 1.05% of the Shawnee Municipal Authority's annual revenue. Next, let's look at the meter maintenance fee. This fee is a little different from the others because it is applied monthly to every utility account. A residential customer pays $6 per month. Larger water customers for commercial and industrial uses pay a higher monthly fee based on the size and type of meter. This fee was implemented in 2018 as part of the project to replace all water meters with smart meters that provide automated meter reading. The initial funding for that project of approximately $6.2 million came from an OWRB loan, and that project was completed in 2021. The meter maintenance fee now covers the associated loan payments of approximately $408,000 per year, which will continue through 2035. The remainder of the fee collections are used for the costs associated with meter maintenance, including repairs, servicing, and serves as a funding source for the long-term replacement of meters. The natural question after reviewing all of this information is, where does the money go? In the simplest overview, the funds generated through utility rates and fees go to 3 major purposes: maintenance and operations, capital improvements, which includes debt service, and transfers to the general fund. On the right-hand side of the slide, we have the fiscal year 23 budget breakout for SMA by division. The Utility Administration Division is significantly larger because it reflects portions of the water treatment plant project and the wastewater treatment plant project, which take about $20 million of that budget. For maintenance and operations, we look at the cost of personnel, equipment, and general operating expenses that are needed to maintain our drinking water sources, operate the treatment facilities, repair the sewer collection lines and the water distribution lines, and provide customer service for over 12,000 accounts. The next component is capital improvements. From 2015 to 2022, SMA made over $17.7 million in loan payments associated with capital improvements to the utility system. Not including the latest wastewater treatment plant 2022 CWSRF loan, the SMA will have an annual debt service obligation of approximately $3.4 million through 2051. In addition to large capital improvements that require financing, the annual capital improvement budget provides for smaller improvements to be made to the system. These can generally range from $1 to $2 million in a given year and include projects like water line replacement. Finally, we have the transfers to the general fund. SMA transfers each year to the City of Shawnee's general fund approximately $4.3 million in the initial budget for fiscal year 23. The transfer provides additional funding for core municipal services, including police, fire, streets, and parks. In summary, the Shawnee Municipal Authority is operating on an exceptionally lean basis in order to provide critical services to the community. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions? There's a lot there. What's your?
The presentations are so thorough, it's hard to come up
Yes,
with
I
questions.
know.
I apologize, they're a little
Very
long.
thorough. You good? Everybody good? All
Thank you.
right, thank you so much. Very good presentation. Okay, next up is Santa Fe Depot update. Mr. Harkins.
Okay, so tonight we want to focus on an example from a peer community of a large-scale type of project, and then give you an update on some other things going on. So with regard to a quick reminder for everyone, the takeaways and the feedback we got were very solid in preserve the depot, preserve the history associated with the depot, use it as a way to honor Shawnee's history, and find a way to use it as a resource that helps not only produce some revenue to help support itself, but also as a generator of activity within the downtown area. The preferred functions that came out of that visioning process were on the screen and in your slides. Number one, a visitor center. Two, some type of community and venue space. And we've given you some examples of that. On a smaller scale tonight will be an example of a very large scale art space and performing arts center, but as well as farmers market type of space, if we could do that, as well as a restaurant. So tonight's example is something that has all of the above, and then some. So this is the example from Santa Fe, New Mexico, and this is not just a depot, but a surrounding environs area. So to compare that on scale here, if you were to take the depot and then some of the surrounding space along Main and surrounding blocks and incorporate that into a larger redevelopment concept, this is something you would be working toward. So this is an aerial to give you an idea of where it's at within Santa Fe. And then this gives you an idea of the actual depot area at street level and the surrounding environs. So this is a large-scale redevelopment project that involved the city, the state, and then a 501c3 that was developed. This is an extension of the city of Santa Fe that does a lot of the work. And this nonprofit not only owns the space, but they do a lot of the leasing, not only of small parcels, but also space within buildings. This gives you an area that is redeveloped into commercial space, into farmers market, into park space, as well as depot rehab that's being used for commercial interest, and then additional commercial development and office space within the environs. So there's a theater, there's a farmers market, and this is an example of a picture from ground level of the farmers market space. This gives you a street example of where the tracks come through and then how some of the area is redeveloped, how different pieces of art and architecture are combined at the urban design scale at street level in order to entice and keep this a vibrant, active space. And this actually is a redevelopment concept that spans both sides of the railroad tracks. Unlike some similar redevelopment projects that get to the tracks and stay on one side. So this is park space. There's also, you see a building there that is a more of an art type of venue. So this is the south end of that redevelopment site where the park space is, and it wraps her back around to the north. Again, city owned, 501c3, leased, to give you an idea of, there's a lot of layers to this type of redevelopment concept. City maintains ownership of the property of the land. The 501c3 does all the leasing and works as the redevelopment arm. So essentially, they do all the work for the city. You can see all the tenants listed there, all the types of uses. There's a lot that goes into this area. There are multiple phases of renovation and then multiple funding sources. So economic development loans from the state came into play on this. City funds, in terms of capital overlays, a loan from the Economic Development Administration, which is an arm of the U.S. Department of Commerce, and then HUD funding came into play to be used for this as well, to do blight clearance and remediation, as well as to provide some additional redevelopment opportunity. That's a very short and very brief description of one large example. To give you an idea of other activities we've been working on, staff conferred last week after some different discussions and made the decision to pursue in the current funding round a transportation alternatives grant from the Oklahoma Department of Transportation. So we're working on getting that information and application submitted by the end of this month. And the idea is that we would be pursuing money through that grant program for phase 1 of the construction, which would be the roof and the building envelope. We would then be also looking at what other city funds, for example, in TIF money and other sources outside of the city funds, we could pursue to start to layer the funding sources together to at least get the phase 1 construction done. Staff is also getting back with the architect that did the initial building envelope study and looking at taking the initial construction work design work that they did and refreshing that and updating it so that we have a solid package to take to bid. So a lot of that design work has been done. We're now at a point of just trying to get that updated and refreshed. And again, continue discussions with PCHS about potential lease arrangements. So with that said, there's a lot in 5 minutes or less, but I'd be happy to answer questions.
You guys got just questions?
Just one for me. The EDL loans, are those for the city or for the 501c3?
So EDA loans probably in most cases go to the city, but we can look at the more specifics. And again, those are through the federal government, so they have their own requirements and restrictions.
And the one big takeaway I get from this, the thing I am asked about the most is, when are we going to start saving the roof so that the building doesn't fall into more disrepair? So the transportation grant option, applying for that this month, you said, and then we could start.
So the timeline is long on that review cycle. So we would submit the initial application this month. The ultimate grant awards are announced in the spring, so March, April timeframe. But that would give us a chance to apply for up to $1 million to help toward construction of that phase 1, which would be the roof and envelope.
Yeah.
That would give us additional time to look at what other funding sources we could put together with that. But that would at least give us a start on that phase.
Yeah, as quickly as we get the roof and envelope done, then we can figure out some of the other stuff. But yeah, I'm happy to hear there's at least a light at the end of the tunnel for that part starting.
And waiting that long, the building's not going to cave in. I mean, that's the question I always get is, the building's going to cave in or something. And
We haven't seen
obviously,
anything to indicate
yeah.
that yet. So, but we're going to try and continue to move quickly as we can.
Yep. Any other questions? Guess not. Thank you so much.
Well,
Oh, wait a
I kind of
minute.
do, just because,
It's all right.
the depot in the area is just so small.
Mhm.
This is a really big example. Is it just something you're pulling little pieces of, or are you guys working towards redoing the entire area around it? Because it's just, from what I can tell, it's just the depot and then the historical museum, right? That's the property itself.
Right. We're focused more on the depot itself and the grounds right there. We're not looking at additional property. The previous admin reports about this have had smaller scale examples, and so we've looked at smaller projects where it's just been the building that's been rehabbed. This is one that we went on the larger scale just to help everyone understand the range of options that could be available. But for right now, we're only focused on the depot itself.
Okay.
We don't have additional property to bring into play on that.
Okay.
Anybody got anything else? Guess we're good. Thank
All
you
right.
very much. That's very interesting. And I think you've got the next one too, don't you?
I do, but I have some help on this one. So, as you may remember, the Unified Development Code project has particular milestones and steps. One of the first steps, as we've done the first round of public engagement, is a review of the current codes and to issue a diagnostic report. That report is available on the project website, and you can link to it through community development's part of the city website. But with me tonight is Don Warwick, the project manager from Friesen Nichols, who's here to walk through the diagnostic and give you some highlights and answer questions or help answer questions that you might have. So I'm going to ask her to come up at this time.
All righty, very good.
Okay. Down button goes to the next slide.
Thank you.
Evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Thank you for having me this evening. As Ryan mentioned, my name is Dawn Warwick. I am the project manager with Friesen Nichols and helping to facilitate this project on behalf of the city. For this evening, I'm going to kind of walk you through the diagnostic report, which is the deliverable for phase 1 of this Unified Development Code project. We'll start just briefly with some team introductions and talk to you about an overview of the project and some of the contents of the diagnostic report itself, and then talk about next steps in the project to give you an idea of where we head from here. So I mentioned myself as the project manager. Reese Wilson is the project planner who has quite a bit of experience in code drafting, and he is also working on this project. And Friesen Nichols engaged the Center for Economic Development Law in Oklahoma City to have some additional support from land use attorneys. So Jeff Sabin is basically on retainer for us to ask questions and to help us to ensure that the product that we put forward for the city is compliant and reflective of all recent legislative changes and things like that. So, just a quick overview of the project. This is the process for getting the Unified Development Code produced. So phase 1, as we mentioned, and what we're talking about this evening, is the code diagnostic, and that document is complete. So it began back in May. It's complete now, and as Ryan mentioned, posted on the project website. Next phase, phase 2, will be working into actually drafting elements of the code. This does also include an additional project that relates to the engineering design criteria for the city. So we'll be working with Seth and his team to ensure that the city's design criteria for infrastructure for the certain public systems that provide streets, water, sewer are all aligned properly with the new development regulations. And the last phase of the project is to get us through any revisions and refinement of the document and get it through the adoption process. And I will mention that that phase also includes the production of what we're calling a development manual. That is a resource that will become a tool for both staff administering the regulations as well as applicants to understand process and what applications they need to pursue in order to accomplish what they're looking to do. So with regard to phase 1, the primary elements of this project include public outreach. We conducted about 13 stakeholder interviews, and beginning back in the spring, we also had an open house meeting, a specific in-person meeting on June 16th, but we also, on the project website, made a virtual open house available for about 2 weeks, running between June 9th and June 23rd. We conducted media outreach for the open house, both virtual and in person, and we conducted a work session or workshop with staff to understand their feedback and interest in improvements to the land development regulations. We all met with the Planning Commission and City Commission during that stakeholder involvement phase, And I mentioned that, and of course, we're meeting with you now. Let's see. Let's go to the next here. Basic foundation for this project, we're looking to update and compile all of the city's development regulations into a singular document. This includes the zoning code, which was most recently updated holistically in 2014, the subdivision regulations, which date back to 1990, and the city's sign code, which dates back to 1999. So each of these documents has sort of a different longevity to them, but they're all at a point in time that it's appropriate to go ahead and make some updates. And bringing them into a single document that we're referring to as a unified development code is a way to ensure as little as possible overlap or conflict within those development regulations, and to provide a more easy to navigate process and resource for both applicants and city staff. One of the foundations to the project was initially developing a public involvement plan for the code update. That involved working with staff, deciding what the key elements of public involvement need to be. Development regulations are different than a long-range planning activity such as a comprehensive plan or an area plan. Development regulations are technical in nature. Not everyone deals with them on a regular basis, but it's still important that the citizens know that there's a project happening and that they have an opportunity to see into that project, that we have some transparency, and the opportunity for education. So that's really what's housed within that public involvement plan. As mentioned, we also have a project website. There's still the feature of the virtual open house on that website. The website's available through the city's main page for the Community Development Department, and we'll continue to use that website as a repository for all of the information and updates with regard to this project so people can keep track of how things are progressing. So the diagnostic report itself looks like this, and it contains about half a dozen sections. The initial report was provided in July. It was revised based on staff input, and an update was completed in August, and then early this month, the project website was updated to contain the diagnostic report, so it is visible to anyone who wishes to go to that site and take a look. The next few slides, I'm going to go through the main components of the diagnostic report so that you get an idea of what it contains and what kind of guidance it provides. The purpose of the diagnostic report, of course, is to take our understanding of all of the stakeholder input that we received during that initial phase, conducting the 13 different stakeholder interviews and the open house events, and also a thorough review of your long-range planning documents, any adopted plans and studies, as well as your existing codes. So that was sort of the foundation that went into creating this understanding of a roadmap forward is really what the diagnostic report provides for us. So one of the key things that we wanted to incorporate into the report is that project overview, but also why. What's the purpose of this project? How is it going to benefit the city? And the purpose is stated in really five bullet points, and you see them here, but to increase the amount and variety of housing within the community, including promoting affordability, promoting economic vitality, increasing connectivity, so how people can get around and access both sites and different places within the city, providing clarity. Codes are very hard to use in some ways. They're full of legalese and verbiage that is not just common usage. So cutting through that as much as possible to make it an easier to navigate and utilize document. And it's also a way for the city to improve the management of its resources, both staff time and effort to move projects through a review process. All of that is important when it comes to an applicant that is working on a development proposal. Time is money, and process is important. Predictability is very important, so that's a component of this effort as well. So, of course, looking at the overall process, And when we talk about foundational components, those are really the things that we're talking about, such as user friendliness, a code that's enforceable, a code that's very easy to understand, a code that relies upon and expresses best practices, and of course provides good guidance to the administration of the ordinances. So another component of the report is outreach. So the report does go through each of those stakeholder events and provides a good overview of what we learned, what we heard in those listening sessions, and what's important to the people who utilize the code and who have a hand in administering it. So we understand that stakeholders are interested in infill, areas within the community that need some revitalization, but also where there are vacant lots. In a lot of situations, you have a system in place where it's very difficult to infill in certain locations because your current regulations really just don't provide the right tools for people to develop lots that are currently vacant. So finding ways to do that and ways that provide both flexibility but also consistency. If we're going to provide some flexibility in the way that a piece of the code is administered, it needs to be the same for everyone. So making sure that that's incorporated. Stakeholder comments also reflected an interest in improving the subdivision regulations. That makes a lot of sense because we're working with regulations that are more than 30 years old at this point, and technologies and practices have changed. Definitions are important. As Ryan will tell you, words mean something, and he's very interested in making sure that we have a broad section on definitions that helps to clarify terms and ensure that, again, we're acting consistently across the board with the development regulations. So you'll see on the screen additional elements. We heard through the public input discussions as well as the stakeholder focus group type meetings a lot of the same things. So it was good that we didn't see a whole lot of variation, but all of that effort led to a good understanding of what the community is looking for with regard to updated regulations. So an element of that, I should not flip that yet. An element of that, of course, is your zoning code and ensuring that you have zoning districts that reflect the type of uses that the community wants and needs. Right now, you have a menu of zoning districts, many of which are really not utilized. So the number of residential and commercial districts that you currently have may be reasonably reduced to a smaller menu, for instance. The utilization of tools such as overlay districts, PUDs, and other specific use applications or specific use permits, those are things that are also going to be evaluated and updated within these within this Unified Development Code. So while we focus on what you currently have and how to maybe express some of that in a more clear way, we're also looking at innovative tools that can help you accomplish things that are currently not available within your existing set of regulations. So zoning is one of the key features, of course, of those regulations. I also mentioned just some of the fundamentals, and this graphic sort of demonstrates something that we're really going to focus a lot on, and that's incorporating very easy to read graphics, bullets, tables, less narrative text, because oftentimes pictures say more, and it's a whole lot easier to look at a code that is depicted in a way that incorporates graphics as opposed to just words. So the words reinforce the graphics. That's important, but we want to make sure that the code is very easy to navigate, and oftentimes using tables, you can convey a whole lot more information than you would in pages and pages of words. So that will be a component of the update as well. So the next couple of slides talk about the review or an analysis by topics within the existing regulations and how we propose to address those. So zoning districts, I mentioned the consolidation of zoning districts, including additional development types, particularly housing types that are not currently utilized much, if any, within the community. and finding good tools for supporting downtown revitalization. Dimensional requirements, that's making sure that, we're still looking at where buildings sit on a lot and making sure there's sufficient setbacks, but also looking at ways that we can provide some flexibility to that. We understand that one of the setbacks are often requested variances, and that's one of the things that we actually took a look at, is how many different types of things were frequently coming through review for relief from the zoning code. Looking at uses, whether or not the right menu of uses is attached to the right zoning district and whether adjustments should be made there. Parking is also a critical topic. The amount of parking that you require on a particular site reduces the amount of leasable or leasable square footage, buildable square footage that is revenue generating. Parking doesn't generate revenue, but activities within buildings do. So it's important to have parking, but it's important to find the right balance between the parking and the amount of space that's dedicated to particular uses. So we'll be looking at ways to utilize parking as potentially ways, incentives for other developments, improvements such as landscaping or other types of site improvements. And speaking of landscaping, additional topics that are incorporated include landscaping, how we, what type of landscaping is required for commercial developments particularly, and how that, what the purpose is, if there's screening necessary or buffering between adjacent uses. Signs will need quite a bit of update. There have been a lot of there have been Supreme Court cases, but there's been quite a bit of case law since 1999 related to signage and what communities can and can't do with regard to regulation of signs. So keeping things content neutral is one of the most important things that we'll need to do, is to go through and make sure that your sign regulations hit that mark. Screening, like landscaping, making sure that we address that and put the proper amount of screening where it will be most impactful. Outdoor lighting is, we understand that there is a desire to move towards dark sky compliance, or at least to incorporate some of those standards so that you have less night glare from city lights. Access management is something that we've seen and we've talked with staff about quite a bit, making sure that the type of access controls or the type of access points that are provided are as few as absolutely necessary. This does two things. It helps to control sort of the movements on the private site to limit conflicts, but it also limits conflicts and improves capacity of the adjacent streets. So it's for safety as well as function. Again, infill standards are something that we heard over again that are important. So we'll basically, so we will be incorporating that and finding ways to address infill standards throughout. Additional topics, the subdivision regulations I mentioned, that's really just a set of regulations that is quite old and needs to be refreshed. But the standards are pretty timeless. Plats are plats, and you need to go through certain processes and steps in order to create lots, but making that as simple and clear as possible. Again, with same thing with administrative processes, streamlining where we can, updating, ensuring that staff is very familiar with and comfortable with the flow of projects coming through and the steps that are necessary in order to move them through an approval process. And all codes need to have sections to address nonconformities as well as enforcement. All right. So based upon the feedback that we received, we also, based upon the review that we conducted, we looked at how many and what types of applications were being submitted to the Board of Adjustment, as well as to the Planning Commission and City Commission with relationship to land development. So we believe that there are ways that we can reduce the number of conditional uses that are coming through the process. That's a very frequent action that a conditional use, there's nothing wrong with a conditional use. We just want to make sure that if there's type of conditional use that is being approved on a very regular basis with the same conditions, then we can codify that so that it's a use by right as opposed to a conditional use, because it's clearly something that is desirable and can be approved. Likewise, with the Board of Adjustment, they see a lot of requests for accessory structure setbacks, and also for addressing street frontage minimums and architectural design standards. So we need to take a look at those and determine if there are criteria within those sections that can be codified and uniform across the board so that those types of requests don't need to come through a public process. The appendices within the diagnostic report include a recommendation list. There are 89 different actions recommended that will be transferred into the development of the code itself. It includes a proposed outline for the Unified Development Code, and it also gives a full synopsis of the feedback that we received through the online preference survey and the in-person open house meetings. So what happens next is we're moving into the code development phase of the project. Code development is the biggest time and activity within the development of the Unified Development Code project. It initiates really in September of 22, and we've got programmed about a year to 14 months in order to develop modules of the code, and we'll do that in pieces. So the general provisions section, which is sort of your introductory section or articles of the Unified Development Code, that's actually drafted, and we're doing some quality review on it right now, so staff will have that within about a week. We will continue to just gradually give them modules of the code. The next section that we'll work on is Subdivision Regulations. The staff will review those, we'll collaborate with staff, and once they're comfortable and believe that we've kind of knocked off all of the big issues with regard to the content, we'll make that information available. We'll utilize the project website as that sort of clearinghouse for information related to the code developments. And that will continue through really the end of next year, and then we'll move into the adoption phase of the project. And that is what I have for you this evening. I'm more than happy to answer questions. Again, the diagnostic report as well as the project website is accessible at this, this QR code. Thank you. I'm getting all my letters mixed up. The QR code and at the URL at the bottom of the page. So.
Very good. Any questions?
Pretty informative.
Ton of information. Yeah, very, very, very good.
We hope that you guys will keep track of us, and we'll keep coming back and giving you updates.
Very good. Thank you so much. That was very informative. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All righty, we are to item 13, I believe. Yeah, new business.
No new business, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners' comments. Let's start down your end tonight.
Very informative reports. My brain is kind of reeling from it all still, just reading it over the weekend and then getting the extra part of the presentation. Thank you, Rick, for the welcome. Kind of working backwards here. We've had talks about some of the things that you mentioned, so I'm glad that you're still putting it on the books at the meetings. I'm still kind of new to this, so I'm trying to figure out everything. Edwina left, but she made a comment about starting to see a homeless presence in her area. She lives a block and a half away from me, and she's not alone. I've seen it too, and I've been down at that park a handful of times in the last month, and I've seen it too, and pretty much anywhere in town. Now I feel like I'm more aware of it, whether it was there already or if it's something that's new. Just being in the last 9 months, more aware of what's been going on in Shawnee than I used to be. So I look forward to talking with her more now that we've settled into our positions. I don't know. I think I'll be good for now because I could go on forever, but I'm.
Alrighty, very good.
My turn, I guess.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
you're up.
The code stuff, I think, will be a huge help for the developers to kind of get new stuff and stuff in place that we've been battling for years, and get away from battling and work with everybody. So I think the builders and contractors will be excited about this. So we really appreciate the work y'all are putting into that before you get out of here. The homeless, I've had more calls on this over the last 2 or 3 months, and, I think most of them don't realize that we even have anything in place and we're working on it. And I think probably my recommendation would be a little bit of input from the coordinator of what's going on, what's not going on, because the public they don't think anything's going on. And what our goals are. I know there's a lot there to deal with, there's a lot of people to deal with, but the concern is definitely justified. But I think that would be a report like our sales tax report and some of the other stuff we get would be fantastic on our end. Really, that's about it for me. You're up.
Well, you did a great job on stealing what I had written down. I appreciate that.
I read that.
The unified code development, that's just awesome. First, I did want to welcome Lauren. I missed last week for your welcome ceremony, so welcome. I did glance down a time or two expecting to see Ben. He's been there a long time. So
He got younger.
yeah, I was like, hang on.
His hair got
Welcome.
longer.
Thank you.
Glad to have you. The staff reports this evening were great. The detail on those reports were fantastic. Good news on the sales tax report. So everything was just very well presented, and we appreciate that information and getting it out to us and to the public. So thank you, staff, and that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Flood?
No. Is there lady's address on her sign-in sheet that had the issue with the fire
Yes.
hydrant?
Yes, yes,
'Cause I don't
yes.
believe
We have
I
all
don't
that.
believe
We
she.
have all that.
I missed that. If she stated it,
She should have written that on.
601 West Burns.
okay. I didn't hear that. Okay, fantastic. Good. All right. So that was. Just wanted to make sure that we follow up on that and see what. Kind of walk back through and see what happened there, if we have a chance to fully understand if there was an issue that we caused through our placing of something, why that family was required to pay for those damages, and if there's something more to that story as to what happened and why it's continued to be placed there. Because I know sometimes we miss things, and just not to say that was on purpose, but if we can just kind of get some clarity on what happened there, that'd be great. Another thing, as far as the conversation about the increased number of homeless individuals that we're seeing in our city, would there be an opportunity to have a conversation with surrounding cities, much like our size, to see what they're seeing as far as their increases go? Because it's pretty easy to go, oh my gosh, we're seeing all these, this many more individuals here in Shawnee, but it would be easier to understand if we could see that the same thing is taking place in other cities, or if we are increasing in a larger amount. And so I know that I know we've had those conversations, and we've had, but if there was something that we could, something a little bit more detailed to share with our citizens to assure them that this issue is not just Shawnee, that it is an increased issue all across the state and the nation. That would be great. Ms. Wilson, I too live right down the road from where you're talking about these parks, and we've had a discussion with our individuals that are trying to work through that, and there's just so much to take care of and keep going, especially when we have extreme rains like we have, and then I swear some of that Johnson grass grows a foot a day, which is just unbelievable to see what that looks like, and understanding that they are on a schedule and they're trying to make it through all the things, but they have a lot to cover and a lot to take care of. And if there's ever an issue with the tractor going down, or if there's ever an issue where they have to be pulled off, or other things, that it just kind of dominoes the whole thing. And that is something that they're aware of, and something that they're working towards. And through Parks and Rec committee, we're working with them to try and figure out how there might be some better options for some of those areas that are green spaces that might be able to be turned back into a more natural green space, versus being something that's just continued to be mowed and not, and always struggle with keeping that up. Let's see here. I think that's it. I know Mr. Morris asked some question about contract review and the showers. I know that those are two unrelated incidences, or not incidents, subjects, but hopefully through conversations of with our homeless coordinator, if there could be a report soon on where we're at and what's going on. I know we talked about that in the past, but just continued clarity, and I think that our staff does a fantastic job in explaining what's going on and what they're doing and why we're doing it, and very, very thankful for all of those individuals working so very hard. And I think that's about it. We had the privilege of being part of Gateway to Prevention and Recovery's Walk for Recovery to celebrate our amazing citizens that are in recovery, and it was at the depot right in front of the museum there. Just wanted to say thank you to the Potawatomi County Historical Society and their partnership with Gateway, and their willingness to allow Gateway to use that area, and then also them opening up the museum for a free entry to any of the individuals that were walking in the recovery walk. And it was neat to see a lot of families to get to use that, and it is a fantastic museum, and to see families that have never been there before really enjoy some of the history and amazing things that have happened in Shawnee. So thank you for allowing our citizens to do that. That was a great thing. And I think that's it for me.
Thank you, sir.
I'm happy to be back. Welcome to new commissioner, not Ben at the end, but Lauren. Thank you for coming. I appreciate all the staff's reports. There was some great information, to the point where by the end I thought, well, I don't really have a question, but I'm very interested in what you're saying, Jacob and Ryan. So, there's a couple of really fantastic things coming down the pipeline for our community that will bring tremendous growth and investment in really positive ways. And those are our recent commitments to our water infrastructure, and then these unified development codes. Although talking about that stuff can sometimes maybe seem boring to the general public, it's exciting to me, and I know to us, because we know that when developers from outside of our community, home builders, look at Shawnee, them seeing active investments in our infrastructure and attention to updating our codes, where they will be easy to understand. They'll know exactly what they're getting into when they come to our town. And then the people that are here won't be as afraid to renovate their own small property or perhaps do an infill. So there's so much need for these codes to be updated that I think is really going to generate a lot of revenue and growth for the city and make our city more attractive to residents as we have a variety of housing options after we see these things getting updated. Sometimes it can be really difficult. You hear murmurings, people that build houses or doing renovations, and they complain about the city staff, but really it's just, there's so much difference in all of the information that we have. And so then we pin it on a couple of our inspectors, and we look hard to work with, but we just have outdated codes. So I'm really excited about that. I think you guys answered quite a few. I also would like to echo, just it would be great to have Erica do an update, because everyone raised great concerns about the homeless earlier. When I was traveling, Ryan's presentation was really hit home for me, because when I was traveling, I was able to go into some really cool, really old buildings, and some light bulbs clicked on for me, and I texted Andre and said, I can't wait to tell you what I've, and a lot of them had to do with an old building that wasn't quite up to date yet or fixable, and then multiple other partnerships, whether that be a national museum rotating in artwork, as well as the local museum that existed, as well as festivals, and kind of got to see what a layered approach to a situation like that would look like, and got really excited about the possibilities here. And I'm trying to think of course, every time I'm going to say we have to get the roof fixed as soon as possible, but I was excited to hear that there may be some opportunity to get part of that money through the transportation grants, which we didn't really think was possible because we weren't going to be an active train depot. So it's really exciting. So a lot of great things happening. I think we're going to see the results of really quickly, and some great development for the city. That's it.
I want to echo Travis. I believe her name was Miss Curry. I trust that city staff will follow up on that, and I would love to get some feedback on what we found, just so we're updated as well. The codes are a big step forward for us, and it's going to make us competitive in as we look to grow. It's kind of hard to hear on some that we haven't updated since 1990, 32 years. Many communities have passed us by, and antiquated anything is hard to work with, and we aren't giving staff the tools they need. And so this will help developers, as Commissioner Sehorn said. It'll make us competitive, and look forward to seeing that move down the way. I always appreciate the administrative reports that we do. I think they're a great service to our community, and I'm hopeful that perhaps we could create a portion of our city website where all of them can go and be housed, because I think it creates a level conversation point and brings some light and facts that are easily accessible for us to have conversations, whether it be in our own homes or in groups, or however we're having those conversations. It just provides some easy access to those kind of things. I kind of want to but come at, I know a lot of people have requested a report from Ms. Gentry and on the homeless. I think my request might be maybe from finance or the city manager's office. There seems to be a narrative developing that it's a big financial boon to the city, that the city is somehow profiting off of doing nothing. And I'd like to just we can either shut that narrative down, or we can say, well, what are we going to do about it? I'd like to look at the funds that have come in designated for homelessness and what we're doing with them. Because the idea that it's profitable to the city to have an increase in homelessness is, in my mind, not true. And but again, we can put facts out there and leave that where it is. Sales tax was good, although I'm curious. Looking at the numbers, this was the first time. I appreciate city staff so much and how we've taken a conservative approach to the budget, but it's the first time our collections in this fiscal year the lines didn't really mirror what we saw last year. And so I think the next month or two are going to be very telling for our economic situation and kind of how we may progress. That's how I read it. I'd love to have an offline conversation about it, but I think our budgeting is really going to help us because we have room for, even if we do experience a little bit of downturn. I'm curious, it looks to me as if the use tax was an anomaly this month and perhaps affected our sales tax numbers, and see how those, I'm curious over the next couple of months how those come in, because we've been kind of mirroring, and this month we didn't. While we're still 10% or almost 11% ahead of projections is great. Just curious as to where it'll go. So we hope for continued good news.
Say something I forgot.
Oh, go right ahead, go right ahead.
Fantastic. I am sorry to jump back in here, Mr. Mayor and other commissioners.
No, that's good.
So just to promote something that we're going to excited about happening downtown on Thursday night, September 22nd, which is coming up. There's our second downtown block party that the city and community will be putting on. It's a free event for families starting at 6. There will be Zumba with candy, which is fantastic. If you've never been a part of something like that, you can bring your whole family down and be part of that. And then Shawnee Russell will be performing at 6:30. And then at 7:15, Spherical Self-Defense will have a martial arts demonstration, which is really exciting. So I really think that will be fantastic. And then the evening being finished out again by Shawnee Russell and live music. There'll be tons of activities down there for kiddos to do. We'll have some fun games and things. Excited out there. Coney Island will be staying open for extended hours for if you want to purchase anything there for food, and then also a local taco truck will be there. And so we're really excited about Victorious being there. Both local entities. Coney Island been around forever, and Victorious is one of our fantastic, amazing local families that have a taco truck. So anyways, like I said, at downtown on Thursday night, it's free to anybody that comes. Have to purchase your own food and things while you're there, and drinks, etc. But the event itself, as far as the entertainment, is free, and we'd love to have any Shawnee residents or surrounding area residents that want to come and have a good evening. So
sounds good.
Yep.
Can't wait to see you Zumba.
Yeah.
Alrighty. I'll try to keep it short because we've covered a lot tonight. Amazing updates by staff. Always appreciate those, and you guys did an awesome job on those. You laid out a lot of facts, and I sure hope people pay attention and listen, because you guys are really putting out good information and stuff that everybody's been asking about, and you guys do a very, very good job asking the questions. So speaking of questions, we had all the homeless questions, and people asking for maybe an update by staff or something. Well, guess what? Tuesday, September 20th, 7 o'clock at Generations Church, our community, information meeting on the homeless is going to be there, 7 o'clock. Everybody's welcome. Thursday night, September 22nd at 2 p.m., same location, Generations Church at 130 South Oklahoma Avenue. They'll have a second one. So there's 2 opportunities in the next week where you can go and, hear all about this. The thought that we're not doing anything, that there's a lot going on, an awful lot going on, more than we've probably ever had going on. The thought that we somehow benefit from this, is just not true, and I agree. I mean, I think we need to, put that out as quickly as we can, because the best thing for us would be to get the situation resolved. It costs us money. It doesn't make us money, and it's not a situation anybody likes. When Edwina talks about, see more in her area, this year's count was 860, and that was 50 some odd different locations around town. It's not just a downtown problem. It's a problem everywhere. And I'm sure she probably did see folks in her area, I have no doubt. I mean, they're literally everywhere. So, it's a situation we're very aware of and a situation that we're working on, but there's no easy fix to this. There's just not. But right now we have a very good organized approach. We have a coordinated approach where we're working with all the other agencies in town and coordinating those efforts, and we've never had that before. And I think we're going to get a lot better results working together than everybody working in a silo. And that's not criticizing anybody, but that's just the way things kind of tend to play out if you don't have, direction to it. Now we have direction, and we have a person that knows a lot about this, and she has a lot of energy, and you have a chance to go visit with her 2 times in the next week. So I would take advantage of that. Anyway, other things. I know Rob brought up the Dr. Pepper building. That was all handled the way it was supposed to be handled. And the building is basically gone now. We did have all the permissions we needed from the owner to get folks out of there. We had all that. Everything was handled the way it was supposed to be. The owner, when the building was knocked down because of safety concerns, that building owner was given the amount of time that they're required to have to get that cleaned up on their own, and she didn't have the resources to do that. So then that falls to us as the community, like every other building that is condemned and then taken down. I mean, none of us like that either, because we're all paying for that, but that's just unfortunately the way that is, and it's not the first time and probably won't be the last time that something like that happens. So, I mean, I don't think there was anything that was handled improperly by the city. You asked about the showers. The showers, I think, were supposed to go away the end of August. Our homeless coordinator was able to persuade the contractor that provides those to leave those extra days. So kudos to her for getting more out of the money that we spent on that. I believe Wednesday is the last day that they're going to be in operation. So after that, those folks will not have a place to take a shower. I know those showers stay very, very busy. If you go down there, you can see the little lights on the outside of the door, and it's very easy to determine which ones are, full and which ones are being used, and they just stay nonstop. So it's been a big benefit for folks, and I know they have a plan to, I think, build showers inside the building is what I've been told. So there won't be a portable trailer out there anymore. At some point, there'll be showers that folks will have access to, but that's probably going to be at least a couple months off. But a lot of the questions that folks have on that, I mean, go down and see Erica on the 20th at 7 o'clock, or on the 22nd at 2 o'clock down there at the church, and she'll have answers for all of this stuff. And this is a tough situation, and it's not just Shawnee, it's nationwide. And it's not going to get any better if we don't take an organized approach to it, and that's exactly what we are doing. So we're never going to get it to zero, but we can do better than 860 or whatever that number is. I know we've talked about Ms. Curry and Ms. Wilson, and I know we'll talk with staff about those situations. And anyway, all righty, we will move on. So we are adjourned, and we will Go on to, where do we go next? Airport Authority. So item 1 is consider approval of the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Thank you, sir.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second to approve item 1. We'll call the question. Motion passes 6 in favor and 1 abstention. Item 2 is new business.
No new business.
Thank you, ma'am. Item 3, we are adjourned. We will move to the Municipal Authority. Item 1 is consider approval of consent agenda.
Move to approve.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
Daniel and Travis. All righty, we have a motion and a second for approval of item 1. We'll call the question. Motion passes 6 in favor, 1 abstention. Item 2 is consideration of budget amendment for fiscal year 2022 to 2023 for Fund 501, Shawnee Municipal Authority Fund, to fund expenditures for meter reader positions and retiree health insurance, and the addition of water sales revenue over budgeted estimates. And Ms. McNabb Fox is up.
Good evening again. So this is just the SMA portion of the budget amendment that I previously presented.
Absolutely. So just piggybacking on what we did earlier.
Yes, sir.
Any questions while we've got her? Nope. I think we're good. And we've got a motion.
Move to approve.
Thank you, sir. Karen and Mark. Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of item 2. We'll call the question. Oh. Yep. I had Darren and Mark as the second. Motion passes 7-0. Item 3 is new business. Thank you, ma'am. We are adjourned. See everybody next time. Thank you for coming.